is the quote. You can see it on the screen. Writing is easy. All you have to do is cross out the wrong words. This is what Mark Twain said. What do you think about it? Do you think you can apply this to your teaching? No, not exactly. Oh, somebody thinks yes. Interesting. Partially. That's my favorite answer to any question. Something you can take from this, something you cannot. But most probably you've heard this quotation from Michelangelo, who was talking about how he was creating his sculptures. He just took a piece of stone and he was chopping off what's not important to make a beautiful sculpture. It's kind of like this. It's kind of getting rid of very different things. And when we compare writing to spoken language, we can actually apply this idea, but still we need to know some rules, how exactly to cross out the wrong words, which words are wrong, and how we can do that. So for now, I will ask you to name three things, three different things between spoken and written language. What's different? And it would be nice if you could write it in the chat, like 1, 2, 3, just three things. Okay, writing is less emotional. Speaking is spontaneous. Writing is structured. Spelling, yes, this is something which is really important for writing. Intonation, yeah. Word order, spelling, spoken mistakes. Speaking is easier. As in this terrible anecdote, for whom how? Vocabulary, syntax. Okay, thank you very much. Speaking is freer. Pronunciation, yeah. A lot of emotional blocks as well, right? Because for me, writing is much, much easier. I'm not a bad writer. Yeah, I these days I work also as a journalist, and I listen a lot. And then I structure everything and I write it down. And for me, actually, speaking is super difficult. And you might think I'm lying, but this is a learned skill. The way I speak, I understand if I wrote it, it would have been much better understood by those who are reading than when I'm speaking. And so in writing, it's much easier to formulate your thought in a preferable way, the way you do it consistently. But speaking is, yes, much more spontaneous and less structured than writing. But at the same time, the more you write, the better your communication skills become in terms of making your thought more precise, more understandable for others. And today we will see what are the differences between written and spoken language. Mostly we will focus on the written language, but in your heads you can compare it to spoken language. And yes, thank you very much for all your responses. So difference one, is permanence. Something we write, we finish the text, and it's there. We cannot undo it. We cannot specify it unless we are having some further discussion regarding this text. But this is permanent. So here, for example, we can see a very outdated instruction on how to use the cassette recorder, and it's permanent. This is something we would not talk about today unless we are in some museum of technology or something like that. So this is permanent thing, the instruction, for example. And in spoken language, we would most probably show things like press here, put it there, la la la. We would accompany our activities and whatever we do with some words, but not exactly the words that we can read in the instruction. And that's a great difference, that spoken language is I would say secondary in the communication, because in the communication, we have gestures, we have emotions, we have our whole body, and we can use it to express something. And usually it brings more truth into what we're going to say and makes more sense. If this is instruction, I would show you something like you zip like this. But if you read it, you had to read the text. You take the zipper, you smoothly somehow do it, and so on. So this should be step-by-step thing. So in the spoken text, we have much more words. And here you can see the example of the spoken text about the same thing, how to use the recorder. And in spoken text, we could have a dialogue. But in writing, we don't usually have a dialogue unless this is texting or messaging, but this is a completely different story. Writing is explicit. And in writing, we can explain things more consistently, as I said. And for example, this is an activity from, I think this is from Think second edition. And we have explicit instruction on how to write down, how to make up a project, how to make questionnaire. And further, our students will explicitly follow these instructions, how to do this, and follow and then create the text that is more, how to say it, more structured, right? Density, another thing. When we speak, we tend to use a lot of words that are not actually needed for communicating the particular thought. We use a lot of linkers. We use a lot of sounds like and sounds like that. In writing, we spend more time on writing itself, but at the same time, we spend less energy when we read the text as a communication instrument. Writing is more dense. Yeah, that's the thing. Fourth difference, detachment. When we are writing, when we are speaking, we usually say things right away. We have time, we use our background knowledge, and we don't think too much. we speak right away. We might be even thinking on the way of our speaking and changing the thought and leading our communication partner through the way we think. But in writing, we are getting in this bubble. We have time to think, to put down the text, to change, to swap some of the paragraphs, to make it more structured, to change the thought on the way. But then as a result, we have a finished story or a finished idea that we put down. And so we, as the authors, are a little bit detached from this text. The text starts living its own life, and then the reader communicates not with us directly, but with the text, and can have different thoughts on the way. And that's the beauty of interpretation comes from here, right? Because when we have the written text, the reader will interpret it much differently from what we were thinking when we were writing this text. And here we need good precision in writing and knowing the rules of how writing works, because we become separate from the text we create, which is different from the way we communicate. In the dialogue, it's much easier to compromise and find the way of common thinking. And of course, the things you already named, organization of your thoughts in written text is much more structured. Slowness of production and speed of reception. That's an interesting part, because we spend more time on writing the text, but then when the person reads the text, it's less time to understand what you were going to say. Standard language. We don't usually use slang words unless this is messaging. We usually use some kind of genre or format. We have different formats of written texts, and in spoken language it's very different. And spoken language can be used in writing if this is a style, like in playwriting, in literature, but usually we have a specific format to communicate with each other, for example, in emails. Writing is a learned skill. Well, speaking is also a learned skill, but this is something we learn from the time when we are born, and writing is learned more, I would say, on purpose. And sheer amount and importance. It's kind of, writing is more important because it stays there, it's permanent. And if we are writing some kind of literature, or reportage, it's more responsible, because this might be the background of further historical explorations. Okay, done here. I will just check whether you were writing anything there. Yes. Oh yeah, and planning, very important part here. Thank you very much. So now we will stop on this theoretical part and let's move on to some activities, and then I will show you a few writing tips that I gathered. So in writing activities, okay, sorry. We need to understand that writing consists of different parts. Writing as a means, writing as an end, and writing as both end and means. We need to understand what we want from our students. Writing as a means, this is the learning process. And writing is not dictation. Well, students are writing something, but it requires a lot of thinking. Taking notes is different type of writing from writing as writing an essay. So writing as a means, writing itself as a process is important actually for writing as an end. And writing as an end, this is the final text. Writing as a means, noting. And we can do it both, like note making and then having a whole notebook of different excerpts from lectures and so on, is writing for both. Yeah, we need this result of writing, and we need writing as a process to memorize things, for example. Now, in writing as a means, we have it here. Writing is widely used within foreign language courses as a convenient means for engaging with aspects of language other than the writing itself. For example, learners note down new vocabulary, copy out grammar rules, write out answers to reading or listening comprehension questions, do written tests, and so on. In these examples, writing is simply used either as a means of getting the students to attend to and practice a particular language point, or even more frequently as a convenient method of testing it, providing information as to how well something has been learned in a form which the teacher can then check at his or her lecture. Writing as an end, activities, other activities take as their main objective the writing itself. At the micro level, they practice specific written forms. At the level of word or sentence, handwriting or typing, spelling, punctuation. At the macro level, the emphasis is on the content and organization. Tasks invite learners to express themselves using their own words, state a purpose for writing, and often specify an audience. Examples of such activities would be narrating a story, writing a letter, writing an email, and so on. And writing as both means and end. This is the third type of activity, combines purposeful and original writing with the learning or practice of some other skill or content. For example, a written response to the reading of a controversial newspaper article combines writing with reading. The writing of anecdotes to illustrate the meaning of idioms combines writing and vocabulary practice. And usually creative writing is both means and writing type of activities combined into one. During the learning process, we use both at the lessons. We use and writing at the tests. Yeah, when we have some kind of control at the tests and exams. This is the only time when we use it, and even practicing for tests and for exams is still both, because afterwards we do the correction work, we discuss the written texts, we grade them and explain to the students what was good or bad, give some feedback, and this is again both. And the most important type of writing these days is writing stories, creating stories, and not just writing, but creating stories to illustrate things, to explain things. And storytelling is taking a huge part of our life, because behind each piece of information, there should be a story to have a value of this piece of information. And the story, whether it's a fiction or it's a real story, depending on the genre of what we write and the aim, this story should have some specific structure, and I will show you a few things on how we structure stories. But before we go, why do we use stories? What do you think? I already showed you one, so let it be there. Where do we use stories? This is a question for you to type in the chat. We use stories Four. Okay, I have an answer, essays. And let's think in real life. Where do we use stories in real life? Not during the lessons, but in reality. Okay, theater. Okay, inspiration. That's a good one. Let's try to be more practical. For books, okay. Identity. Ooh, that's a good one. I will just omit all the comments that are connected to lessons and language learning. To describe a product. Great. Entertainment. Yes. Magazines. Journalism. Okay. While you're thinking more, uh, we use stories for everything that we call culture. And by culture, I mean actual society. We all are based on stories as the society. And the stories we tell to each other, the stories we read, the stories we reproduce, this is what becomes our culture. For example, when we tell our children that a boogeyman will take them if they behave bad, this is a story that forms the culture of the child, and then they live their lives accordingly. When we tell each other the story about being helpless in the face of corruption, this is the story we tell to each other, and we reproduce it. The stories start everything. So this is the basic level of any society and any culture. But also in a more practical way, how it's used, we use stories for filmmaking, we use stories for commercials and marketing. And behind every product, someone was telling there that we use stories to describe products. Behind every product that you have in your house, we have some particular story. Like you saw the commercial about a beautiful day. You can see a picture of a beautiful day, a happy woman opens a fridge, takes her yogurt, drinks the yogurt, and continues her happy day. So it's kind of yogurt there. This is something we buy, but this is just the association. We actually buy a story where this lady is happy and has a great day because she's eating yogurt, right? So we use it for marketing. We use stories for public speaking because only communicating thoughts without telling actual stories that illustrate the reality of these thoughts is impossible. For public speaking, for any public interaction, we do use stories. Especially personal stories work very well in this area. For presentations, like I should be telling some story to you about my writing and how I write, and this creates this emotional link, right? So I told you, I confessed that speaking is really difficult to me. Because I'm writing much more because of my journalistic background, and so this is the story that you know about me, and maybe can relate in some way. And yes, of course, for media. Um, I will just check if you have any more ideas. For education, of course. For to organize information, very good. For blogs, for newspapers, to find out something new. Yes, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, but I really feel that today the world really needs good stories. And we recently had this, I think it was a year ago, we had a competition for students where they could write their stories about something that made them change their minds, made them think differently about something that they thought to be true, but then this happened and now they think differently. And this is actually how we base every good story about a good character, a good hero. Yeah, when they change their mind at the end of the story, like this happened, and now I think this. And this is a great way to make stories create our reality and make it much better. Um, yes. Okay. And writing for stories and for this communication with each other, better communication with each other, involves creative thinking, critical thinking, learning to learn, communication, collaboration, and of course, social responsibility. And you can learn more about all of these life skills in our free brochure that I will attach to the emails when you receive them. But yeah, in writing activities, we usually have our lessons starting from reading as a model for writing. And here is a question: do you enjoy reading stories? What makes a story interesting? And that's a great question for students. What makes a story interesting? What's your favorite story? What's your favorite character? Why his story is interesting? And we ask students to read a story quickly and answer some easy questions. Like here we have read Eve's story quickly. How many people had the same sunglasses? And this is something to make our students interested in, aha, I need to count something. But at the same time, they read a story. And okay. Yeah. Before getting to writing the stories, you can talk to your students about their favorite stories to share their favorite characters. By the way, do you have a favorite story? Or a favorite character these days? For example, my favorite story is about mommy trolls. I'm a big fan of Tore Jansen. Okay, while you're thinking about your favorite story, we will move on. Uh, Here is the secret of a good plot. Uh, sorry. Uh, is there any story that everybody knows? Okay, Cinderella, The Old Man and the Sea. Oh, that's a wonderful story. Okay, let's have it. Cinderella is a great example. I have an example. Actually, every fairy tale is a great example of a great story and how we built it. With your students, you can go through the points of the story. For example, uh, here is a typical idea of uh, dramaturgy or of a story. There is exposition, development, climax, and resolution. In development, we have rise of action. Here we have the fall of action. And I usually demonstrate it on Kolobok fairy tale, which is a terrible tragedy. Actually, if we think about the genre of the story, it's terrible tragedy. So here we have exposition. What's going on in the exposition? I have here Alice in Wonderland and so on. What's going on in the exposition of Kolobok? What's the beginning? Okay. Yes, we set the story, but how exactly do we set? When he comes to life, that's already development of the story. The exposition is that these two old people don't have children. That's the beginning. That's the problem. That's where the problem is set. They don't have children. So they decide to make something that will substitute a child. Oh, Marina, thank you. The old people have no kids. That's how we set the problem. And so they don't have kids, and so they decide to make this piece of bread that rolls away from the house, and that's the development. Comes to life, rolls away from the house, meets uh, a rabbit, meets a wolf, meets a bear, and here the story repeats. It's all the same, nothing new is happening. He's rolling further, rolling, and here he comes to the fox. And where is the climax of the story? The highest point of the story. Eaten by the fox. No, this is the end. Where is the climax? Like the biggest pressure of the story sits on the nose. I would even say sits on the on the tongue. That's the biggest pressure. Like, will you think about coming back home or will you continue doing these mad things? No, he continues, and then the story is over. The fox is full and happy. The Kolobok doesn't exist anymore. And here we can think about very high rated problems of humanity and about making things not because of love, but because of having lack of something, and then creating something that will not stay with you because it's not about love. It's just because you're feeling like, oh, everybody has it and I don't have it, let's make it, and so on and so on. Yeah, so we can find very different problems here. From the side of Kolobok, it's a problem of doing things that going somewhere without an aim because you are running away but not uh, going to a place, to a goal that you set. He didn't have any goal, and so he was eaten. And so I find it a terrible tragedy, and I don't really understand why why this story is told to children. But yeah, mm, that's the thing. But at the same time, this is a wonderful example of how we tell stories. Something, there is a problem, and then something continuous, comes to a highest point and finishes. And this is how you can work with your students with these stories. You give them this particular structure, then you help them think of visual storytelling, and then you show them how to make a good plot in a very simple way through this a few sentences, like I took an apple, I bit a piece of this apple, I broke my tooth, and then what can happen in the end of this story? I went to the doctors, or something else. And so you show your students that each story consists of these parts. Development can be longer, like I beat a piece of an apple, I looked into the window, there was a beautiful bird, and then I bit another piece of an apple, and then on the final piece of an apple, I broke my tooth. Climax. And so I had to do something with it. So this is how we build these stories. Knowing the structure, students will feel more confident in telling stories to each other and writing stories down to illustrate whatever they have to say. And this is how it's done with the sunglasses. So this is a story where they went to a shopping mall and bought the same sunglasses and were laughing at each other because that was unexpected. And yeah, it was very funny, they say. But this is how the story is continuing. Yeah, we wanted some good sunglasses. We decided to go to the shopping mall. We were walking past our favorite shop when I saw they had a sale. First, now we have the development. Yeah, here we don't have sunglasses. We go. The ship sets off. We go to the shopping mall. We go to the favorite shop. I saw the sale. Another point. Ooh, the sale. Another hook of this story. And then the development. We tried a lot of pairs of designer label sunglasses. Next, we each picked out a pair. We both chose the same pair of really cool sunglasses. When we were leaving the shop, I saw our best friends, Poppy and Harvey. Suddenly, we started laughing at each other because we were all wearing the same pink and blue sunglasses. It was very funny. And yeah, meeting and understanding this moment of everyone buying the same color is the climax of this story. And you see how the story is built. First, next, then, when this, then that, suddenly. Suddenly is always the climax, the moment of climax. We give our students some time to see how many people had the same sunglasses. They find 4 people wearing the same sunglasses, and then we ask students to analyze beginning, middle, ending, and find it here. We have the ending, the middle part, and the beginning. After students analyze the story, we ask them to do more language activities, like find 3 verbs in the past simple, yeah, find 3 verbs in the past continuous. So we work not only on writing and structures itself, but also on the ongoing grammar. Then we ask students more if we want. So they really get used to both language and structure, and we explain how narrative tenses work in the stories. And then we prepare to write. Uh, we, um, we ask students to answer these questions. Why must you tell the story? What's the belief? Why this story is important, and what is the greater purpose uh, of this story, why it should be told. And of course, you create an interesting character if needed, or the character is you. For teenagers, of course, it would be interesting to put them as a character, maybe change the name. It's emotional, there should be some kind of twist. And here is a typical structure of any story. Once upon a time, there was a girl. Every day she went to school. One day, and here we have something different. Yeah, one day she decided not to go to school. Because of that, she missed her English lesson until finally she stopped learning English. Another tragedy I'm having here. But yeah, this is a typical fairy tale or a typical moral story. And with your students, you can have this exercise yeah, about anything. Once upon a time, there was a cat. Every day it was lying on a bed. One day it ran away. Because of that, I went to search for him until finally I found him with kittens. And here's, whoa, a great story. It's super easy to make stories with this structure. So have a screenshot, use it, and enjoy. With this apple story, you can even teach your student. I specifically have this film thing here because this is a 4 shots activity. Every story, every action in a visual story consists of 4 shots. Like I take, okay. I take sunglasses. This is exposition. I put them on. This is development. I don't see anything because they're dark. This is climax. I take them off and continue the lecture as a normal person. This is resolution. So this is the visual story that you can ask your students even to practice. Yeah, to take this actual apple and play it out, maybe make videos of each other and work on that as a visual story. But before that, of course, they need to write the script of the story, and so so they have this story precise, and there is no just I don't know, a mess on the camera. So to make it precise, you first make a script, put it in different parts. It doesn't have to be just 4, it can be 20, it can be a longer story, but a bit of a story like a note in music, it's 4 shots rule. And yeah, I just showed you the once upon a time, one exposition, then every day development. One day this happened, resolution. After that, we do this and that. This is how stories work. This is how our brains work, and that's the only way they work. So it will be easy for you students to acquire this structure. What do we have with the time? I think we have only 5 minutes left. So yeah, with your students, the kind of stories you can make is, imagine you're preparing a plot of a new TV show with a creative team. Come up with your own ideas, discuss with the team, present your ideas to the producer, and this would be another team. And this is something that motivates students to actually write these things down. Listen to your to other teams and improve the plot. And this kind of activities will give your students the understanding why they have to write something, yeah, coming up with your own ideas, writing them down to pitch this story to your partners will be the basis of the reason why you have to write things down one by one to be consistent. So someone reads it and says, this is interesting. If I were a film director or a producer of a TV show, I would go for this story. And that's one of the one of the reasons why they make the story. Of course, they can continue and make this little film as a project, but for us, the main idea is to get them to write consistently. And also stories are part of exams. Yeah, also for articles and essays, as someone was telling, we also need to know the structure, that the main thing, the main thought, the main turn or twist is somewhere in the middle, and it's and you need to come up to it. For example, here we have an essay. You can read it. So here we have the reasons to illustrate whether we agree or disagree with the idea. The finest inheritance you can give to a child is to allow it to make its own way completely on its own feet. And of course, your students will find the way to tell a story where they did something on their own without help of their parents, and it worked out or it didn't work out, and now they have some new conclusions about life. So still, stories work almost everywhere, even in essay writing and just telling what happened. For this writing, we of course need a proper planning and preparation, like team building, where everybody knows the roles, everybody knows all the rules about the project, and nobody is left out and has something to contribute. They write it down. They have their roles of a timekeeper, of a list maker, of someone who makes some kind of notes, someone who makes the exploration of the story, the research, and someone who presents the story. For example, then they start the brainstorming, where we have time limit, we have no structure, no judgments. We don't say no to any idea. And this is something we can use for collaborative planning. For example, there is 5-minute writing with multiple contributions, where everybody has a piece of paper. They write down their idea or the beginning of the story, like with that one, once upon a time and blah, blah, blah. And then they give it to the partner and add up and then open it and see what other ideas they have. 5-minute writing on the topic. Yeah, for example, the topic I just gave you, this quotation, or the quotation to good writing is crossing out the wrong words. What do you think about it? And just for 5 minutes, you write nonstop. And then students can share and find what was there. Very important to make this writing real, because in real life, when we have creative writing ideas, activities, we have it for a reason. For example, we are the author of a book or the journalist. So we have the first draft, and on this stage, there is no assessment of the language. There is no assessment of anything. There is just support. You help your students with key vocabulary, with the modeling text, with discussion of possible content, guidance on the organization. So this is what happens on the first draft. After this, for example, 5 minutes writing. Then we give feedback. We give feedback and we ask students to edit their text. We take the second draft, and that's where we comment on things, give feedback on the language. Like, you have mistakes here and there. Then students edit and give you the final draft of a final text. That's where you already evaluate it and give them proper grade if that's what you need. But final draft is where you cannot change anything. Yeah, like it goes to the newspaper, it goes to the publishing house. But for your students, they receive their grade according to the final draft. But before that, they need to have this time to make changes, to organize structure better, and to make it more understandable for the reader. For that, you can use Google Docs. I usually use Google Docs. Give comments to children so they see it, they comment, and then close the problem. Another activity is write and freeze activity. You put students in pairs or groups of 3. You give them a large piece of paper. You say, write your address, your opening greeting, and then stop. And then start writing the letter on the topic, like how I spend my summer holidays. They start writing, and then you say freeze. They stop writing, even if they are in the middle of the word. They fold. They give this paper to the few students next to them. Students read, correct, improve the text that they read from their partner. And then they start writing the continuation according to what they read. Then again, they freeze, they transfer, correct, improve, continue. In the end, everyone reads the text that was made collaboratively and improved. And once they have their beginning of their text returning to them, they can see all the work done. And that's just a fun activity with unexpected outcomes of the story they started writing. Some writing tips, and I will let you go. So show the importance of working with the draft. Drafts are important, and on the level of draft, on the stage of drafting the text, continuous support of the teacher is very, very crucial. Use writing prompts. The prompt could be anything, a question, a statement, a picture. Help students with the writing prompts. Something to start with, like I gave you the structure and you can write a story. Keep a life-saving writing checklist. Like 5 things that we shouldn't forget to check when we write an email. Or this checklist of the structure can also work. Like I wrote it and then I see here is exposition, here is development, here is climax, and so on. Empower the group. Make collaborative activities before you go. Let students talk. Let students read something so they have a good model. And prepare for longer pieces. After you have 4 shots, make them in a bigger scale let them explain each stage, each scene in a longer sentences. At the end of this webinar, no, sorry, next week, you will receive an email where I will ask you to fill out the form